Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am here with a very special guest, Adam Goldstein, CEO and founder of Archer. Thank you for being here, Adam.
Great to be here.
So we're at AIPCON number 6. Palantir and Archer actually just announced a new partnership this morning for Archer to leverage AIP and Foundry. First of all, what was the extent of the partnership? What are you guys going to be using the partnership for in the future? And how excited are you about working with Palantir?
So I've been speaking to Dr. Karp about this now for over a year, and we've really talked about how the future of aviation is going to evolve. And if you take a step back and you look at it, there are around 3 million flights per day in the US.
Right.
3 million people fly per day, about 45,000 flights. And so when you start to think about the systems today, they're already stretched.
Right.
They're maxed. And so if Archer is even remotely successful, we will need to grow this exponentially. And so we have to really think about the core foundational products that have to be in place to allow us to really scale. And that's across both the manufacturing side, but also on the software side to enable all this to scale. So we've really worked on these core foundational moments here to put that in place, and that's what the partnership's all about.
And I think let's step back a little as well for those that aren't familiar with Archer. I know a lot of people do know Archer. You guys have quite the following. People are getting more excited about the company and the trajectory for you guys. What exactly does Archer do?
So Archer is building the future of aviation. And so we focus across 3 core categories. We have the civil side, which is what people talk about as air taxi. And so think about, instead of driving to the airport, Manhattan to JFK, it takes you 90 minutes in an Uber. You can fly there in 5 minutes.
Right.
That's the civil side of the business. We have the defense side of the business, where we've partnered with Anduril, and we're building next generation aircraft. That's a hybrid VTOL product that we don't talk too much about. And the third leg of the stool is really all about software. And so how do we put in place the different core components of the value chain to enable all of this to scale?
So I think when some people think about Archer, one of the big things they think about is saving time in travel. Is the sort of like really utopian vision that if I want to get from LA to San Francisco, instead of getting on a flight and United Airlines, I can get an Archer for 20 minutes?
Well, I think we'll probably leave that to the larger commercial jets because they fly much faster.
Right.
And so a big commercial jet, will fly multiple times faster than we'll fly. We're flying at typically think like helicopter, type of routes. So routes that are in the, call it 20 to 50 miles. We can go up to 100 miles. And over time, sort of the range side will go up even further than that. But how long do you want to spend in these things? And so we look at trips where people are spending, an hour, 2 hours on the ground in cars and replacing those with flights that are 5, 10, 15 minutes. And so some of those, they can be really, really fast because geography, water, mountains, things like that. Right. Some of them, it's traffic. And so the traffic is just so brutal. And so when you start to look at the urban environments, you really see these dense populations. And then you try to figure out how to connect people together. And there's so much opportunity to do this. I mean, even if you just looked at Los Angeles, there are over 5 million trips per day that only go 20 miles that take greater than an hour. So even if we just looked at LA as one city and we replaced all those trips on the grounds with flights in the air, we'd be the biggest aviation company in the world by a massive amount.
And you guys think that's actually possible in the future? Like you believe the 401 won't be crowded in 10 years?
So we are going to start commercializing this year. So we will start to put that in place this year. We're launching with the goal to launch in the UAE first. And so we put a lot of the infrastructure in place. The UAE has been a great partner to us. They're backers of us, investors. They've been partners with us for a long time to help make this dream come true. But the goal then is to expand it all, internationally, expand it all over the world. And the question will become, how many can we build?
Right.
And so it's not a question of will people take it, because I'm very convinced people want their time back. The question is, how many can we build? Again, it goes back to you have to put the right software in place to make sure you can build a manufacturing system that can scale. If you look at, the auto companies today, that has been one of the core challenges, because it's not just scaling. You have to do it in a way you can actually make money too.
So, okay, let's get into the software piece. And then you touched briefly on what you guys are doing with Palantir. If I don't have this wrong, it's about building an operating system that scales the manufacturing of the aircrafts. Is there something else besides that, or is that the biggest challenge right now?
Yeah, that's the first challenge. So if you look at the systems that exist today, they were all built and designed around today's existing environment, of course. And so they weren't built to think about an aviation company that could scale to potentially hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of vehicles, of aircrafts. And so how do we go put in place the systems to go do that? So that's the manufacturing challenge. Beyond that then is, if you are successful, the questions is, okay, what happens?
Right.
Because how do you think about the booking process, the scheduling process, the planning process? How do you, really figure out how to scale the whole industry that goes beyond manufacturing? So manufacturing is just where it starts.
Where does the ontology play a role with you guys?
Well, I think the big picture here, if we just step back of like what's happening, is we have to figure out a way to build the future world. And the challenge has become, in an industry that's heavily regulated, in an industry where safety is the top priority and will remain this top priority, we have to just figure out new ways to do things. And it has to go back to like the really basic functions. And so, we've really tried to focus on putting core pieces in place, really starting back at first principles to think about, growing and scaling all this. And that's honestly the biggest challenge here. I think that the challenge, what everybody talks about is like, will people take these vehicles? They take them today.
Oh, yeah.
They're helicopters, right?
In an instant. Yeah.
People take helicopters today. The reason why people don't take helicopters today is they can't afford it, or the helicopters have been banned in cities because they're loud. And so if you have the assumption that, the product will be very usable and people are excited to take it, the question then becomes, okay, back to how many can you build?
Yeah, and that's really exciting to Archer for me. Like when I heard the idea, I think it was 2 years ago, I heard about the idea and I was introduced to the company. It was never a demand thing. It was always like, can they actually manufacture? Can they execute? But the idea in and of itself, I think a lot of people are super excited for. Why'd you guys pick Palantir and not another data operating system?
So again, I've been talking to Dr. Karp about this for a while and just trying to think about the core foundational elements. And it's not just about the products they have, but it's about combining sort of the brain power to think about the products that can be built.
Right.
And so there's opportunities with Palantir to build new products,
right,
to things that can, again, help us scale beyond even the things we're thinking about today. And so you take two like-minded companies, you put them together and, magical things can happen. They do really good work on, thinking through how do you solve some of these challenges as they've looked at, lots of different companies.
Yes.
And they can apply that back to the stuff we're doing.
Correct.
And then we take some of our crazy ideas and share them. And all of a sudden, we start coming up and riffing on totally new products that can change everything.
Right.
And so I haven't seen another company like hit it off just from the beginning. And again, Dr. Karp's been a big supporter of it.
Talk to me about Anduril. That news surprised a lot of people. I was actually on a live stream when that news broke, and my entire live stream chat was just like, Anduril? Like that no one expected that. What is the nature of that partnership, and do you guys think you're going to become a bigger player when it comes to U.S. defense?
So I can only say limited amounts when it comes to the relationship, just given the nature of the business that we're doing. But the concept is, if you think about what Elon tweets about, what President Trump tweets about, they always talk about the future being unmanned and autonomous and low cost.
Right.
And so how do we build, they call it autonomous and attritable. How do we build systems that are going to be, the best systems possible for all the future, issues that we might have? And so we looked at that at fixed wing aircraft, and there's programs that were announced. And then we started thinking about that from a helicopter perspective. So I'll give you an example. So if you think about, supply chain, right? So how do you build aircraft at scale that can help solve issues across long distances, across very difficult terrains and ranges that might be greater than what helicopters can do today?
Right.
Well, you start to need aircraft, but by building vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, all of a sudden you don't need runways, and so it means less infrastructure needed. So you start to apply the same kind of things that you see on the civil side to the defense side, and there's lots of different applications. Once you make them autonomous, it allows it to make a product that can be, put forward without the risk of human life, which means they're willing to be used more. Once you make them low cost, all of a sudden it makes it, very topical today, where we could just lower the entire budget. But it also makes a product that you are willing to put out there and take more risk on. So let's say somebody's life was at risk and you didn't want to risk more human lives, or you didn't want to risk a very expensive machine. You could risk a lower cost machine to save somebody's life.
Correct.
So lots of interesting applications here, but really the things helicopters do, the complementary systems to them, there's so many, interesting things that are out there. And this is just the start of all the future, what we call future vertical lift.
So commercial and defense, you think are a big opportunity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We started in commercial, and then of course, we've expanded to defense, and that flywheel is actually pretty common in aviation companies.
Right.
And the reason it's interesting is the civil side, you have to start with, products and, concepts that are actually, standard, because these are things that have to go through a very strict regulatory process. Yeah. But once you go over to the defense side, you can start doing things that are more first principles based, that are, untested. So an example might be, additive manufacturing. That's like a good example. If you want to start 3D printing a lot of stuff, that's not something that's typical in the civil side of the business. So if you build products, you gain lots of hours, you gain lots of data, you can then take that data, share it on the civil side, and ultimately advance the civil side of the business. And so that's the way it's worked historically.
Right.
And I think that's going to be a huge driver of the civil market today.
So you founded Archer. How's the journey been like? I mean, it's been a long time. You guys are, I think, finally starting to get a lot of recognition. And one of the dreams of every founder is like you're working in the basement all night, and then 10 years later you wake up, you're an overnight success. People actually care about you. They want to interview you. How has the journey just been like doing this thing?
Well, it's been definitely a crazy ride, not one I ever could have imagined. But if you go back in time, this was a tech that NASA was working on, 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Distributed electric propulsion, how to use multiple electric motors to fly an aircraft. If you go back to 2009, Larry Page was really the guy in Silicon Valley that started, this building out this tech. And he goes to this Stanford professor named Alon Crow, and they really come together and start to figure out some of these early concepts. And so he was kind of the one that helped create the community that you see now in Silicon Valley. In 2015, at Uber Elevate, Nikhil Goyal and Mark Moore, they show this white paper that really says, okay, well, maybe this could be a business, and here's some business concepts behind that. And that really kicked off, okay, it's not just cool tech. They're actually companies that can actually build a business. In 2018, Adam Jonas at Morgan Stanley writes the 100-page initiation report that says this is the next multi-trillion-dollar business.
Correct.
And that was the point where it really went crazy. And that brought capital into the space. That helped the regulators know this was important. And that all happened at the same time that energy density in batteries got good enough to actually make this all work. So a lot of serendipity, a lot of luck that's happened, but been a crazy journey to get here.
Is Uber a competitor for you guys?
No, Uber is not a competitor. They're more of a platform. And so I think one day you could see, multiple, air taxi companies that are on the app. But Uber is a platform, I think, to help distribute multiple modes of transportation.
It's almost similar to FSD, where or self-driving as a concept, right? Uber wants to be a partner to a lot of these companies if they're not building the foundational technology themselves. Do you think the other eVTOL companies? I mean, you can talk your book here, but are they in the same realm of what Archer's doing here?
Yeah. So right now, you're kind of seeing this interesting, thing happen where there's a pretty big consolidation taking place. You've got the U.S. companies and then you've got the European companies.
Some of the European companies are going bankrupt.
The European companies have struggled.
Yes.
And the main reason they've struggled is it's not just an engineering issue. That wasn't really the problem that they really struggled with. It was a capital issue.
Yes.
And so you need time to build and harden and certify aircraft.
Right.
And the capital markets were rough in Europe. And the capital markets in the U.S. were better. And so you've seen this where the winners have been able to keep winning in the U.S. And so, I think Archer's been a standout in being able to do that. It's enabled us to just attract the best talent in the world. It's enabled us to build an incredible product and ultimately kind of get to the sort of, last, one or two companies standing, which I think in the end will help create an industry. And then potentially, some more companies will be born from that.
Yeah. No, I love it. It is really exciting to see you guys get the momentum and begin to scale. Last question for you, Adam. Thank you for taking the time to do this. There are a lot of retail investors in Anduril. What would your message be to them who have stuck with you guys and are planning to stay with you guys till the very end?
I think the retail is a big part of the entire stock market. And so I think they're the ones that actually do the deepest amount of research. They're the ones that follow every single little clue and nook and cranny that comes out there. They're also the ones that really want the technology to come forward.
Yeah.
And so what I think is so special about the retail is they help create this vision of the future world that they want to. And that aligns with what we're building. We are trying to build the world that we want to live in. And I think there's great alignment there. And so I'm hopeful the retail will be a good part of our future.
Adam Goldstein, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are here at the 6th edition of Palantir's AIPCon. I am here with a very special guest, Pete Serkin, who is the president of Wendys Supply Chain Co-op. Pete, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I don't know how special it is, but I appreciate you having me here today.
Well, you guys got rid of the 4 for $4 a couple years ago.
Don't bring that back.
But then you turned it into a $5 biggie bag.
You can't make a living selling anything for $4. I tell you what, we may be on the lookout. We may bring that back for a little bit.
Well, $5 is not too horrible. But before we get into it, Krista Pullman, who was part of Wendys Quality Supply Chain Co-op as well, last time was at AIPCon, and I asked her to do something for me. It's been 6 months. She hasn't done it. So I'm going to ask to see if you can do it.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll oblige, but if you did, I think the world would be a better place. You guys manage the supply chain for all the Wendys in North America. I think 4,600 locations.
few more than that, about 6,500 locations across
6,500.
Canada and the U.S., as well as 30-some in Mexico.
Okay. Mayo needs to be banned from all those
Really?
locations.
Now, let me
It
get
is
into
the
that with you.
devil's condiment.
Is it our mayo or it's all mayo?
All mayo.
All mayo. Okay.
I mean, literally, the name brand is called Hellman's.
Okay.
It's from hell. So
Okay.
I would just, I don't know if you want to, take it seriously or not. Krista
So
didn't take it
it's
seriously.
not a
but-
question of improving the mayonnaise.
No, it's a question of banning it.
Okay. Then
It might hurt the margins of Wendy's, but
how do you
society
feel-
would
how
be
do you
better.
feel about mustard?
I'm not a fan of it, but it's not the devil.
Okay.
Barbecue sauce is the only one that actually matters. But Krista,
Ooh,
she didn't vibe with that.
So
maybe
got to
one day
get rid
you
of
will.
mayonnaise. Mustard's okay.
Mustard's
but
okay.
barbecue's the best.
Barbecue is the best.
Okay, we got a couple builds coming out later this year with barbecue on it that we'll have to get you hooked up into.
All right. Well, hopefully that happens. Pete, thank you for taking the time to do this. Why do you guys work with Palantir?
Make a long story short, Palantir was the only company that when we told them what our vision was and what we wanted to accomplish, that actually said, hey, we can do this and we can do it in a reasonable time frame.
Wow.
We were pretty disappointed in some of the big Mag 7 type companies when we talked to them. And it was a question around, okay, well, you don't have the right data, or you don't have the right IT people, or you don't have the right system, or, well, before we got to that, we could probably fit you in 2 years from now.
Huh.
And it was all these reasons as to why we couldn't connect all of our data together. And Palantir really came in with a completely different attitude. And now after working with them, I understand why.
Right.
Their attitude was, once they learned something about us, they said, well, you're actually pretty good at what you do today.
Yeah.
How do you do what you do today? And what do you use to make those decisions? We could start right there.
We can accelerate from there.
Yeah, we can
right?
accelerate from there. Others didn't see it that way. They wanted to change what and how and what we did before we ever got started. Or they just, quite frankly, didn't call us back.
Right.
So we were a bit stunned by that. We thought this was the new emerging technology. Our money's green too. We thought we could buy this technology and fit it in. And the Palantir really came in and told us why and how and when we could do it, not that we couldn't do it. And I think now that we've worked with them for a little bit, the thing that is that continues to impress us is this: they are so outcome biased.
Yes.
They are consumed by, this is what we said we were going to do.
Right.
This is how long we said it was going to take. And that's what we're going to do, period. Failure is really not an option. It's not the way they think. I don't know what drives that within their culture, but their culture is very different than any other partner we work with, because that's the way they see our business together.
I've gotten a chance to speak to a couple different forward deployed engineers, and from the tone of energy I get from them, they don't sleep well at night unless they deliver you outcomes. And it's very hard for them to take money from you guys without proving that they're worth it.
We often joke that when we see our senior engineers and a project is due and they're showing it to us on a Wednesday, that they look like they haven't slept for 2 or 3 days. So I would tell you that firsthand knowledge tells me that there's a whole lot of late nights going in. Now, I think that they work incredibly hard when they are on. I think they're on.
Right. One thing you said in your presentation today, which was a phenomenal presentation on the main stage, was that Palantir didn't wait for your data to be perfect. Can you speak to a little bit about this idea of how they are able to work with existing non-pristine data but still deliver outcomes?
I think, and I had this question earlier today, and I hadn't really thought about it because that was just the norm of what we saw.
Right.
The way they have worked and the way we see them work is side by side with our internal IT folks, side by side with our project management team. And they'll literally parachute in the right resources to take care of it and supplement our teams as we work through projects and opportunities and problems alongside the data.
Right.
So we'll see them deploy resources according to the situation, and they'll ramp up and ramp down according to what that looks like. So they'll bring in incremental engineers to go work on a project if they know that we have a problem and an opportunity, and our teams will work together to get those fixed.
It's very adaptive.
It's incredibly adaptive. And I think the way they morph and move between clients, they scale up and scale down as well as anybody we deal with.
So you guys are not Wendys. You are the supply chain that makes Wendys able to function. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, 6,500 locations, the tomatoes, the lettuce, the burgers, everything has to be there on time. What has the ontology done to supercharge the ability to make that as accurate as possible?
Oh, it's. I'll give you an example of last year. We had a phenomenal promotion with. We did a SpongeBob collab, and that collaboration went wild in the first 12 hours. We had people standing out front of our stores in SpongeBob costumes.
Wow.
We had no idea that was going to happen. The first demand signals we got were aggregated by the Palantir software.
Wow.
That software told us, the Foundry software told us, we have a problem. Something is happening that doesn't happen. And people say, well, you should have forecasted it better. No forecasting model that we have in existence would have ever told us that we would have had a parabolic move in demand in a matter of hours across a multitude of items. Our work with Palantir in Foundry gave us that. Had we not had that, we would have probably sat still for 72 hours, 48 hours until we realized what was happening and the extent it was happening.
Right.
We would have known something was happening. We just wouldn't have known how large. And we certainly wouldn't have taken the steps to the scale we needed to fix it.
Correct.
So in the first hours of the promo, I was on the phone with our chief marketing officer saying, hey, what are you seeing? Because I'm getting back into production on the sauce, burgers, buns, everything that went along with the promotion. So it changed our business because without it, I would tell you that we would have had outages at stores for 5, 6, 7, 8 days. We would have had to have pulled out of the promotion in some markets. Instead, we had small outages scattered across our system of one day, maybe. So that impacted our business last fall, and we're not very far into this journey.
Right. And I imagine when you experience something, in the words of Karp, he likes to keep using this word transformational, it's really hard to go back away from that.
Listen, and I said it on stage today, our people have now gotten used to this piece of software, and they're far more effective and efficient at their job. Nobody wants to be terrible at their job.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that your teams have the best pieces of equipment and tools at their disposal so they can be successful. Right now, going backwards isn't an option.
Yeah.
The only option that we have within our business right now is continuing to go down this, because now our people, our partners, our franchisees, our corporation have now seen the power of what this can do. There's no going back to Excel spreadsheets and having stuff scattered about on laptops. That's not happening.
And that's hard for most organizations to fully embrace a digital transformation, actually want to get off of email and Excel. But I guess the more transformational value they see, the more they're afraid to go back. And then it's just a question of how many more applications, workflows can we build on top of it?
Well, and I also think it's a function of this, is how frustrating your job is if you don't have what you need to make decisions and you have to fight the same battle tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, I've eliminated a portion of that frustration, and you can now move on to something far more strategic and fun tomorrow instead of fighting the same thing.
Yes.
And one of the things that we have talked about with Palantir is our teams have really kind of gathered around the data. They've gathered around the Foundry product. They like to look at it. They like to use it. The adoption that we see within our company has been relatively remarkable. One of the things we were concerned about was people being fearful of it.
Right.
That has not been the case at all.
People have embraced it.
People have embraced it. And I think it's because it's a tool to make their job so much easier. They're so much more effective. They can deal with problems that they don't have to deal with again and over and over and over and over again with.
Right.
So the adoption has really been quite remarkable to watch within our organization, at least.
And it's been a little less than a year for the partnership?
Yeah. Well, we started with a pilot in the fall of 2023.
Oh, wow. So yeah, that is pretty incredible for 18 months to see this type of progress. What is the role of AI in all of this?
Well, as we start to look out forward, the system that I demonstrated today, we want to start to automate all of those decisions. Now, we don't want to automate those decisions based on rules.
Right.
We want to automate those decisions based on, okay, I'll give you an easy example. If it's 80 degrees in Columbus, Ohio, chances are in the spring, we're going to sell 20 to 30% more Frosties. How do I feed that data into the system so that AI is automatically looking out into the future and looking at weather and saying, hey, I've got to position and think about our Frosty production plan.
Right.
How much milk do I need, 12 days previous? How much milk do I need to go buy to make Frosty to get it into Columbus so when that 80-degree hits, I'm in position?
And unlike McDonald's, your Frosty machine actually works.
We demonstrated it here today. I joked earlier. I said, I probably should have checked to make sure it worked. And our team was like, "Don't worry about it."
I saw pictures of the Frosties. People loved it.
It worked. Yeah,
they were enjoying it.
So how do we enable that to start to use demand planning, predictive forecasting, utilizing far more variables, and understanding the correlation coefficients that go along with our sales? And then using that predictive analytics to look out into the future and then run our supply chain more efficiently because of that.
Right. And ultimately, the end result of everything you just said is better margins, which is what the promise of AI is. Right?
Absolutely. It's how am I there for that consumer when he needs me with the right product at the right time, and I never disappoint them.
Pete, thank you for taking the time. Last question for you. What is the 5 to 10 year vision with the partnership with Palantir?
I got to get through the next 2 or 3 first. No, I think that we're just at the start. And anybody thinks that where we are today is where we're going to be, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think the part of this that I've learned along the way is we had a vision of what we wanted it to be. And as we learned more about the capability and understood the promise of what it could do, that vision literally changes on a regular basis. So for me to sit here and tell you what I think 10 years from now looks like, I can't contemplate it, because I will tell you right now, when I get home and we fool around with the next update, I'll have 3 or 4 ideas of things that I would like to do that I'm not talking about a few dollars. I'm talking about millions of dollars of value we could drive for our stores and our restaurants based off of this system. So it is incredibly difficult. My comment is we're going to let value drive our journey and figure out where we go from there.
I love it. Pete, thank you for taking the time.
Sir. Appreciate it. We'll work on that mayonnaise.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are here at the 6th edition of Palantir's AIPCon. I'm here with a very special guest, Rory Patterson, who is the chairman of Databricks Federal. Rory, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys announced a partnership today with Palantir, which I think a lot of people in the Palantir community have been waiting for. There's been rumors that you guys will be working together. Why did you guys decide to partner with Palantir today?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for our customers. And quite honestly, customers have been asking about this for quite a while, right? I actually think when we first started down this path of having this discussion, we found that customers were already trying to integrate the 2 platforms. And this was a great opportunity to give them what they want. And I think it's a match made in heaven, right? I think you take the world's best data platform and you put on top of it the company who builds the best outcomes and is closest to the business. And those 2 things just bring customers more value.
So let's take it back a little bit for some people that don't know exactly what Databricks is. I know Databricks, Palantir, high-tech company is kind of hard to explain. Most people understand Palantir as a ontological operating system that drives decision-making for the business. What would you say Databricks is?
Yeah, Databricks has what we refer to as the data intelligence platform. And that's, end-to-end services that ingest, transform, store, govern your data. What's really unique about Databricks is that we do all this in an open fashion, right? So, Delta Lake, which is an open storage format based on Parquet, it's your data. Customers get to keep it. They own it. They can walk away from Databricks at any time, and anyone else can look at the data. Then we have an integrated governance platform, which we call Unity Catalog. It's like the first of its kind. It's been in the market for several years. And then on top of that, you put your apps. So a data warehouse, machine learning models, notebooks, Gen AI. But it's all contained within one platform.
So you guys think of yourselves as kind of like an integrated ecosystem for customers to actually build more applications on that, like drive actual workflows for the business that make sense.
That's right.
Yeah. And how is that consistent with Palantir's ontology, which is kind of the heart of this partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I think that customers want to be able to use that ontology, and by putting more of the data into one spot, right? Like we believe that if if Palantir and Databricks are sitting side by side, there's actually less value that Palantir can bring to the customer and less value the Databricks can bring to the customer.
Yeah.
Put all the data in one location and allow Palantir to read it, apply the ontology upon reading from Databricks, and they get all the value that they had before, plus access to all the rest of the data.
What is going on right now with data? Why is there this massive data revolution? You guys are growing crazy fast as a company. Palantir is growing fast as a public company. I mean, like, why is there this insatiable demand for data intelligence?
Yeah, well, I think one, data volumes have been growing for years, and customers realize the immediate value of their information, but then on top of that, there's all this context and all this, unstructured data,
right,
that's surrounding it. So they're trying to get value out of that as well, not just the initial like, hey, you feed me something, I understand what that is, and it's like super simple. It's like algebra. I think there's a lot more context that's around their data, and the more they can get access to it first, depend on it, it has integrity, then the more second, third, fourth level of insights that they can gather from it.
And I assume insights are kind of what's driving the necessity for companies to even realize that they need a data platform in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard if your executive staff, business operations is spending all their time answering the first question,
yeah.
as opposed to like, hey, I want to know what the, performance was of this machine, or I want to know what the performance was of my business unit. And it takes you X amount of time to get to that.
Right.
You don't have the time to then dig in and say, well, why wasn't it more performant?
Yeah.
Why can't I improve? If it takes you forever to get to the first insight, you don't even have time in your business to get to the second or the third. And what we're finding is as data volumes increase, it's not just that you're not asking the right questions, it's that the data volumes, you need a platform that can keep up with actually returning the results.
Right.
You're not timing out. You're not, hey, I can't run that search because it's so complicated, I can't even get to the recommendation. And that's for simple things like BI. When you get to like machine learning models and more advanced things, some of those searches just time out and you actually never get to the algorithm you want.
AI agents, everyone's talking about them. It's creating a revolution. Do you guys see that as a tailwind right now for Databricks as a company?
For sure. I mean, I think that there's a massive amount of opportunity there. And I think we have a unique platform because we already have so much of the enterprise data. We're not going after the consumer use case,
right.
Ask Claude, ask ChatGPT. That's not trained on enterprise data.
Correct.
Databricks has access to an enterprise's entire, cornucopia of data. Therefore, when we ask questions of that data, we have AI models that are actually looking inside of our products and contextualizing the information that's inside of it. So it's not just a question about like, hey, what was the revenue for X company? And you're searching the internet for it. You're like, no, what's the revenue of my company?
Right.
What's the information? What's the answer to this question on my data specifically? We already have all that information, so it gives us a big competitive advantage.
You guys have a big government business. Palantir has obviously been working in the government for a long time. You're the head of federal at Databricks. What are the synergies like for Palantir and Databricks in the government?
Yeah, there's a ton. I would say that most people think that this partnership was founded because of the public sector synergies, although there's a lot of commercial overlap as well. The opportunity here for both companies is to eliminate the perception of competition, right? The government customers for sure are looking at it and saying like, do I have to choose Palantir or Databricks? And I think the answer is we should be able to walk into those customers and say, no, you should have the best of both. You feel free to have both of us.
Why do you think the media has kind of put you guys against each other over the past couple of years?
I mean, I think it's great to have competition.
Right.
So I think it also tells a story in that way. But I also think that people don't understand the technologies, right? So it was pretty interesting. A couple months ago, Shyam and I were like just emailing back and forth about like, hey, what do you think about this? And like that night he hacked together hey, here's an integration. And it was like 60% of it, right?
Typical
overnight.
Shyam.
Yeah, it's like 60% of it overnight was like, well, I think we can just do this. And it had already been reading from our Unity catalog. And it was pretty impressive that like that quickly. And then as we walked into more customers, there was actually a DoD customer that forced the integration on the two of us that we were both in the account. And they're like, no, we're only going to do the demo. We're only going to do it this way. And it worked. Wow. It was fast. And so that really showed us that, okay, customers not only are wanting this, but in some ways they're going to kind of force it either way. Yeah, so why not give them the best solution, the best integration right out of the box?
Interesting. So that email exchange with Shyam kind of led to him hacking something to potentially show a operational workflow. And then the DoD kind of forced the integration to happen. And then you guys decided it just makes sense to work together.
Yeah, it was that easy. And we've gone to, a handful of customers where we were both having discussions, and the customer would, at least on our side, I'm not sure what's happening on the Palantir side, the customer would be like, hey, just so you know, I'm getting, I'm having a lot of discussions with Palantir over here.
Right.
And it was just easier to go into that customer and say, oh, actually, here's the pitch from both of us.
Right.
And it didn't, all the friction was removed.
Right.
And they realized, oh, we could coexist. And in some of these cases, we both had some portion of the data estate. And now that customer actually gets to put it together and, get more value out of it.
LLMs and the revolution of LLMs, I'm assuming Palantir's had the stance that the large language models will be commoditized. The integration of them is what matters. I would imagine you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably already out there. I think that the LLMs there's going to be a ton of value that those companies can still create around the LLMs, and we'll see what that looks like. I think, Anthropic, OpenAI, they're just not going to make LLMs. They're going to expand off from there. But I think the general purpose that we're looking at them today has been commoditized. I think you can build a $10 million LLM that's pretty good, or you can use Llama or something like that. And
right,
why would you pay more for something you don't have to?
Right.
And Databricks is unique because we can kind of look at those models and run them against the same analytic simultaneously.
Right.
And then say, well, at this cost, this performance, the quality of this answer, and compare them all.
Right.
And then allow a customer to decide, okay, I want to use this one or I want to use that one for this unique workload. It's I think that will help also drive down prices, which,
is good for everybody.
That's right.
Yeah. Rory, thank you for taking the time to do this. Last question for you. 10 years from now, where do you see the data AI revolution kind of taking place in the context of Databricks?
Oh, that's a great question.
We're going to have robots and Terminators getting ready
I it's interesting. I'm an optimist. So I think that in the future, there will be robots. And I think, the Gen AI revolution will actually accelerate the leverage of robots, autonomous everything, because they're going to be able to somewhat educate themselves about the next step.
Right.
But yeah, I think the best outcome for everyone is finding the really smart things that we can apply this to. Healthcare.
Yes.
Let's find cures for things faster.
Yeah.
Robots. Let's manufacture things in a safe way for humans. There's a lot of things that we do that are super dangerous. Let's build some robots that do those things. Let's, travel further, go faster. Those things are all in our future. And I think data is a big part of that. Hopefully Databricks will be underpinning most of that in the future.
I love it. Rory, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Databricks and Palantir now working together.